Hey there, and welcome back to another She-Hulk video. And today we're going to be talking about episode 6, Just Jen. And I don't know what's going on with this show anymore, but I feel like it gets further and further away from having any real sort of compelling storyline. Yeah, there's this underlying thing of people wanting her blood, but that storyline's so sporadic. And instead, it's really leaning into it just being a slice of life drama for Jen, and not a hugely compelling one at that. And I'm glad they're experimenting, but for me it's no longer working. The first half of the season, yeah, it worked. But from here, I actually want the actual plot to kick off, but once again, whilst there's that slight hint, there's no real progress, and her character remains very stagnant. It's just very, In isolation, this episode's fine, but in the wider scope of things, we've had 6 episodes now and there's no real substance. It hardly even feels like the MCU at this point. But anyway, with all that being said, let's jump into it. So we start off the episode with Jen in her apartment, where she's received a mysterious package. A package that she opens up and coats her floor in glitter. Which, this kind of thing's never ever happened to me, but I do read about it all the time on those entitled wedding forum things because I live for the drama. And this honestly feels like it'd be one of the most annoying things in the world, so she has my sympathy here. Glitter bombs are evil. But regardless, as soon as I saw the wedding invite, I just knew that there'd be minimal plot progression or character development. Again. And here we are in episode 6, and this is still the status quo. How could we have possibly gotten to this point? Anyway, she invites Nikki over, and she packs for the wedding, and they banter, and we get a little bit of backstory about her friendship with the bride, Lulu, and it's like, yeah, this is fun, they have a fun dynamic here, they're friends, woo, but just, and they even play into things, and talk about how weddings always happen at inconvenient times. And so basically we're being told, yes, this is a wedding episode, and yes, it is a shit idea, and we know it's a shit idea, but we're making a social point. I understand wanting to have this type of episode, but outright telling the audience that it's intentionally supposed to make you annoyed at its existence comes across as stupid writing to me. Also, Nikki trying to pursue a relationship with somebody who seems like they're her superior, kind of? That feels like it's a bit unwise from where I'm sitting. But anyway, Jen arrives at the wedding and she's in full Hulk mode, and yeah, I get it, I understand you want to look good for the wedding, but did this come across as tone deaf for her character to do this? Did anybody else think it was a bit much? I know they're trying to present the bride as a bridezilla. I get it. But is it so weird to not want the attention at your own wedding to be drawn from you and your future partner to an actual superhuman who can control what they look like and thus is only in Hulk form to draw attention? It's like turning up to somebody's wedding in a white dress. You didn't need to make that choice. So why do it? Although I will admit, Bride was a bit cringe to call her out so obviously in front of everybody. No need to make a scene. They then walk inside and they talk about plans for the wedding and which bridesmaid's going to walk with which groomsmen. And she's told that she's going to be walking in with Jonathan, who's not there right now. And so it's clearly that this is the groom's pet dog, or the bride's. I've seen enough sitcom weddings to know where this is going. And I'll be honest, it is very overdone. They did it with Chappie in Phoebe's wedding in Friends. You're not going to top that, so why bother? But at this point, it's inevitable. He's coming, so we'll move on. Anyway, moving on, we then cut to the Office storyline, which is very filler today, but that's alright. We have Mallory and Nikki working a divorce case for a guy that goes by Mr. Immortal, who's in the middle of a divorce that he fears is going to bleed him dry. And that instead of talking through his feelings, he often simply kills himself to get away from his spouses so he can avoid any sort of awkward conversations. And honestly, this scene, I found it very funny. The assertion that he's such a nice guy, that he doesn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and so he thinks it's better that he just dies, and so they can go on thinking that he was actually in love with them still. And on top of that, he can escape with his financials intact. And so the pair of them rip him a new one, and then keep yelling at him, so he kills himself then and there by jumping out the window. And honestly, this whole scene was just fun. It was very, very stupid, but very fun. And once again, it's an example of the random, stupid, filler side story and the side characters being far more enjoyable to watch than the actual main storyline with Jen. The status quo is getting really weird. How are they making such fun and compelling side stories while the main plot languishes? And so then sadly, we return to the wedding, where the bride is talking to Jen about her life and asking her what she's been up to, and not really caring about the response, and then making her feel terrible about being single. And honestly, how am I supposed to go around pretending like this woman's supposed to be ugly or undateable? Seriously. The show acts like she's this frumpy little gremlin who's only hot when she turns into She-Hulk. It's just typical Hollywood, isn't it? Oh, she's slightly less conventionally attractive than usual. So let's pretend she looks like Quasimodo. Everybody play along. It's just weird to me. Oh, and they have a terrible and dated Twilight reference, and god damn it, I know it's meant to show that these characters are cringy, but it simply makes me angry because it reminds me that that franchise exists at all. And then would you look at that, it's Titania, here to ruin the wedding because she still has a bone to pick with Jen. And she's also currently dating one of the groom's friends, just to get herself a +1. And therefore, she reveals that she must have been mega stalking Jen to figure out she'd get invited to this thing. It's actually quite creepy when you think about it. But then Jen does not do the reasonable thing and avoid her, and instead tries to call her out to the bride's face, which was obviously never going to work. Like, come on, read the room. Anyway, she gets shut down and looks like a fool. Whoops. And so she goes outside, and who should she see? Why, he's a generic handsome guy, here to be her latest romantic interest, and probably, let's be real, either be a secret villain who wants a blood sample from her, or he's going to screw her around and break her heart, leaving her looking scorned once again. Either way, the show wants to present her as unlucky in love. Maybe to make her more relatable? I don't know, but to me, once again, it comes across as very forced. Anyway, they flirt and they get separated by Bridezilla and given tasks to clean up. As of course, since she's being a Bridezilla, the event staff is quitting. But then it's back to the fun part of the episode again, where we see that this divorce case isn't just for one marriage, but 8? And they all want a slice of the pie. And you know what? Fair enough. Screw this guy. Like, it's funny and weird, and the dude is charismatic, charming, and funny, but still, he deserves to get taken for everything he's worth. After all, he lives forever. He has plenty of time to earn the money back. Anyway, we then get a short list of the accusations. He disappeared when a bill for $75,000 of credit card debt arrived. That was the last time she saw Paul. Another woman raised Spencer Jr. alone for all those years. So he's a deadbeat dad as well. Another guy spent $10,000 on a New Orleans jazz funeral after Arnie swallowed a cyanide pill by accident. And it turns out they all found out this through the website Intelligentsia, the site for hateful man babies. So obviously this is meant to be Reddit. And I do usually hate when Hollywood does this type of shit and acts like they aren't just as bad as the plebs they rage against. I mean, Harvey Weinstein, anybody? But I did get a good chuckle out of it regardless, because it is kind of true. But then sadly, it's back to the wedding, and Jen of course is wearing a terribly ugly bridesmaid dress, and the other bridesmaids then take advantage of her kindness and get her to iron out the groomsmen's shirts, as they somehow got all wrinkled playing Mario Kart. And then Jonathan arrives, and what do you know? It is a dog! Who would have guessed? And hey, what do you know? He's also on the verge of death, just like Chappie from Friends. Before it's back to the office once again, where this dude is being forced to give up his 1981 Apple shares, heartbreaking, and a bunch of gold left to him by the Baroness Cromwell, also heartbreaking. And apparently this was his first wife. So I wonder how old this guy is. When was he born? Where was he born? I don't want a spin-off episode about this dude now and his awful relationship history. How did he first discover that he'd always come back to life? What was his first death? What was the context of it? All these juicy questions. Certainly beats wedding drama. Anyway, he tries to suggest that they split up all that money evenly, calling himself generous in the process, okay mate. But the partners don't like that. They each want more for their own reasons. And so he briefly tries to kill himself again before we cut back to the wedding, where Ched is DJing. And honestly just being generally obnoxious, naming himself Incredible Hulk. Ugh. I hate this character, but I also love him so much. The actor does it so well. Anyway, Jen's bored and decides to get messy drunk and dance alone on the dance floor before we're briefly back to the office where Nikki takes charge and manages to come to a compromise with each different person. Some want money, some reimbursement for time wasted, and some just a sincere and meaningful apology with lasting eye contact. And of course, he tries to get out of that part of the deal. Doesn't even care about the money, but the possibility of awkward eye contact, that gives him the shivers. Woof! We then return to Jen, who's drunk calling Bruce, who she can't get in contact with, and what are the odds he calls her back in the final episode or in a post-credits scene? And over comes handsome Josh, who she flirts with in sloppy fashion. And anyway, this is cute and sweet, and it's nice that he builds her confidence, but his eagerness to see her She-Hulk form very much convinces me that this dude is bad news. And so I'm not going to get attached. Oh, and then she vomits outside. Lovely. And then she gets sucker punched by Titania. And anyway, how does her body work? How does being a Hulk work? Is her normal form also insanely durable? Because She didn't transform and she got punched and launched by someone with super strength. How was she just fine? Shouldn't her face be busted up at the very least? But anyway, Titania isn't satisfied with just beating down normal Jen and wants her to become She-Hulk. And so, after a couple of tries, she turns and is now sober and thus able to whoop some serious ass. And so they brawl, and yeah, after a few good hits, Titania gets destroyed again, and then slips on some ice and ruins her veneers, and so she leaves and steals the top tier of the wedding cake as she goes. Whew! And also, Jen destroyed the path outside. The venue's gonna be so mad. And on top of that, a waiter got injured, but hey, the bride's drunk and so she doesn't even care, and is just more excited that She-Hulk came to the wedding. But then it's back to the office, and Nikki's hopes for a romance with Mallory are shot down when she reveals that she is married. And good, because I feel like getting into a relationship with a co-worker, who's technically your superior, when you arrive at a new job is a truly terrible idea. And then they go onto that Intelligentsia website where they find a weird forum where people are talking about how to murder She-Hulk. Oh no, it's the internet weirdos. They're the true villains of the story. Reddit is the MCU's newest supervillain. Anyway, Mallory tells Nikki that they shouldn't bother telling anybody about this. It would be better if Jen's able to live her life without fear. And these are just trolls anyway. But Nikki immediately breaks this agreement and calls her in the car, but Jen's busy on an after-wedding date with handsome villain Josh. Before we get a look into the spooky evil lab of the villains. And honestly, what kind of villain's going to use a public social media platform to plan their hit on She-Hulk? How can I take this seriously? It's so weird. Also, how has it taken us to the end of episode 6 to get to some proper plot? Ugh, I'm starting to sour on the show. It had so much cool potential in those early episodes, but I feel like it's just pissing it all away. We're over halfway. What's going on? But of course, that's the end of the episode. I would like to say that these were just my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the episode? Like it? Hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.